To set the stage, it was 2005. I was living on my own. Had a girlfriend, my own apartment, and a paid-off used car. I was working as the assistant manager of a gas station. I made decent money for the time and was living comfortably, but I was far from being rich. My younger brother, Kyle, was living with me at the time. He had serious behavioral problems, oppositional defiant disorder, ADHD, etc., some of which were due to a shared rough upbringing, abuse of a serious nature. He had nowhere to go as the rest of my family refused to deal with him. In their defense, he did lie, cheat, and steal on a daily basis and had a drug habit. He even broke my arm deliberately once. I was trying to do the right thing and get him on track. I got him a job and would take him to work, gave him some spending money, and allowed him to live rent-free. The rules were simple. I didn't care if he smoked weed, but it wouldn't be in my apartment. Drugs would not cross into my apartment. One day, I decided to surprise my girlfriend with 9 Inch Nails tickets at the Tabernacle in Atlanta for her birthday. They were her favorite band. I had this planned months in advance and ended up working a double shift the night of the concert and driving down there due to some sudden personnel issues at work. When I got back the following morning, which I had off, I stopped by my work to make sure there were no more sudden schedule changes. My manager, Betty Jo, saw me and had a look on her face I'd only seen the day she got robbed. I knew it was bad. She sat me down and explained that Kyle had tried to get a ride to a spot in town that was notorious for selling drugs. Kyle admitted he was trying to sell a significant quantity of weed and coke to a coworker, which could have cost me my job. I got up and peeled out in the parking lot, headed for home, which was literally 40 seconds away. He broke the rules. He knew it was the only way to get immediately removed. It was even in writing because I made him sign a letter stating the rules. So I ejected him from the apartment that day despite his protests. Fast forward 4 months. He would call me occasionally and update me on how he was doing. He said he got a new job making a ton of money. I congratulated him. I was saving money since kicking him out. I didn't pay attention to my balance as I kept a running tally in my head. My girlfriend decided we should go to the beach for the weekend as I had a rare weekend off. I went to withdraw $300 so we could have a blast. Insufficient funds, I thought there had to be an error, so I tried again. Same error. I went home and checked my bank statement. I was over $9,500 shy of where I should have been. I checked my statements. There were huge cash withdrawals every day up to the maximum allowed limit day after day. $900 at AT&T, an astronomical sum at that time. Hundreds of dollars at liquor stores, clothes, dozens of transactions I never made, etc. I printed my statements and went directly to the large regional branch. I was told it was definitely identity theft and that it's unusual because it was in the north of my town. I was told to get anything back. I had to turn the investigation over to the bank, so I did. A few days later, I got a phone call from the officer investigating. He asked to meet. He had a stack of printed photos almost a foot high as every transaction on an ATM takes a picture. Do you know this guy? I informed the detective it was Kyle. Investigator told me Kyle had the money to evade police for a long time if he desired a no stable address or job to be picked up at, so it would be a long shot of finding him. I told my buddy Rick what happened. Rick was a gruff, 6'4" Native American man who was well-muscled from a life of hard labor. Rick was a good person, but if you screwed with him or his friends, he was devious and loved scorched earth tactics. You didn't bring small problems to him. He immediately offered to help. Now, Kyle loved Rick, despite the fact that Rick was a massive jerk to him on a regular basis. Kyle wanted his approval desperately. We concocted a plan. He would call Kyle, get him to come over under the guise that I had fallen out with Rick over the way I treated Kyle. Naturally, Kyle ate the story hook, line and sinker. Kyle gave Rick an address to meet an abandoned car wash in the north of town. We loaded up his truck and the trap was set. Rick hops out of the truck and tells Kyle to get in. I was laying down in the front seat so he couldn't see me. He opens the door and I put him in a headlock and pull him in. We go back to Rick's place while my brother visibly sweats and even cries at some points. We cooked him dinner and calmly sat down, ate, and then cleaned up. The entire time Kyle had convinced himself he was about to get murdered in the woods. We gave him a chance to explain himself. Naturally, as was his way, he lied, denied, and swore on everyone living and dead he had nothing to do with it. I grabbed a stack of photos from the investigator and silently slid them across the table. Again, he denied everything. This was a setup. You're trying to make me a felon. I did nothing wrong. I had enough. I called the non-emergency number and the police came to pick him up. We said he showed up unexpectedly and started to get violent. When they searched him, he had OxyContin, a felony, and he tried to assault me in front of the officer, screaming about how we set him up, and all of this was unjust. He ended up getting arrested and was pleaded down to 1 or 2 felonies. Kyle ended up getting 5 years with an early release in 3. I think this was because, despite his checkered past, family never pressed charges, so his record was clean. He has been in and out of 5-star luxury federal resorts ever since for such wonderful things as the manufacturing and distribution of meth, child endangerment, theft, etc. I ended up with a full refund. This happened in about mid-Oct. The company I work for holds a Halloween party every year for our local children's hospital, and I was one of the few workers who decided to volunteer. I was doing face painting for the kids. The party was themed Nightmare Before Christmas, so I was dressed as Sally, full face painted and everything. Once the party was over, I went to a couple Walmarts to look at some stuff. I went to the first Walmart and everything was great. A woman dressed as a unicorn who was helping run the self-checkouts complimented me and gave me candy, so I assumed everything was fine. I went to the second Walmart and immediately as I walked in, I went past all the checkouts to head to the aisle I needed. I suddenly heard a woman making a loud AM noise, and I looked over because I thought it was someone trying to get my attention for something. Sure enough, a woman who was checking out continued to make the obnoxious noise and then proceeded to look at me, then to the woman watching the registers, back to me, and so on. I was so confused on what the hell was happening. The worker eventually looked at the woman and went, "May I help with something?" "You're just going to let this happen," she said to the worker, directly looking and gesturing to me. Yes," the worker said, giving an awkward look to me before kind of waving me off as a sign to run. I immediately started walking away so I didn't have to deal with some Karen yelling at me about how Halloween is satanic and that I should be ashamed of myself, as this actually already happened twice at my workplace, which was a Halloween store. I heard the woman say something about a thing robbery as I was walking away. That was nice. Not super climactic, but was definitely nerve-wracking for me, as I had a lot of social anxiety. I can share so many stories from that job to the point it almost wasn't funny. Some years back, we held a family reunion outside of Nashville. Now, my family isn't from anywhere near there, but it was convenient for the OHENC and FL branches of the family. Plus, my cousin managed the campground and got a screaming good deal on the cabin since it was off season. But it wasn't really convenient for my wife and I. We live on the shores of the Puget Sound. Everyone else could and did drive, but we obviously had to fly. Again, thanks to my cousin, we were able to arrive early and leave late. By flying in on the Friday before and out on Monday after, we didn't have to fly on the holiday weekends or during the holiday week, and saved literally 80% on the cost of our tickets. Plus, we got some time free of family commitments and got to do some geocaching, and I got to visit Johnny Cash's grave. So, it's the Monday before Thanksgiving, and we're hanging out with a couple of cousins who came on Sunday. Most everyone is coming in on Monday, and I wanted to be there when they got there. Living on the other side of the country, I don't get to see my family as much as I'd like. And my phone rings. It's my mom. She's somewhere in the boonies of North Georgia, and she wants me to go to the grocery store and buy apples so she can make apple pies for Thanksgiving. "Mom, why didn't you just get apples in FL? Because they'll be fresher if you buy them in Nashville." "No, Mom, they won't be. They all come out of the same warehouse and they've probably been there since last year. A day or two, one way or the other, won't make any difference." Not that I said this out loud, mind you. It wouldn't have accomplished anything and I'd still have to go buy the apples. So, me and one of the cousins head out to the local Megamart, and when we got there, I realized we have a problem. I'm not a baker. Neither is my cousin. A quick phone call informs us that nobody hanging out at the campground is either. Calling my mom back gets a really helpful answer. "Oh, just get any pineapple. It doesn't matter." Damn. Now what? I steeled myself to ask one of the clerks, and in my experience, that's rolling the dice. They might know, they might not. They might be able to help you, or they might mess with you. When suddenly, an angel appeared before me. They're an endangered species nowadays, but they're still out there. The lady who has been baking since she was old enough to stand unassisted and help her grandma. And if you're a Southerner above a certain age, you can easily recognize them. I hadn't lived in the South in 20 plus years, but I still knew how to do this thing. I braced myself, put on my best manners, a crestfallen look, and threw myself on the mercy of the court. Ma'am, I hate to be a bother, but I have a problem, and I'd sure appreciate your help. Oh, honey, sure, what can I do for you? I explained the matter, and the angel grabbed my cart and dragged me over the display of apples. After a brief discourse on the virtues and vices of each kind, she asked what kind of apple pie Mom was baking. And if I knew, though, I put it much more politely and self-effacing than that. Well then, just get some of these and some of those and a few of those others and you should be fine. Don't worry, just tell your mom that this old lady said everything will turn out just fine. Her assumption that Mom didn't know either was probably valid. Mom was a good cook and a good baker, but the only pies I ever remembered her cooking were pumpkin and Boston cream. Boston cream was my favorite growing up, and the one she made me some years later turned out to be the last thing she ever baked for me. But that's a story for a different place and time. So I bought some of these and some of those and a few of those others and hoped for the best. When I handed the bags to my mom, her only comment was thanks. These are perfect, so I don't know. Either way, the pies turned out wonderful. And Thanksgiving Day was, by some miracle, 72 degrees, sunny and clear as a bell. We set up a buffet on the lawn and ate under the tree. I had 2 slices of that pie. And when we were cleaning up, there was half of one left, and I put it in the fridge in my cabin for breakfast the next morning. Mom gave me a scowl as I was making off with it, but she owed me, both for the errand and for giving away almost an entire fifth of my Jack Daniels. The toddies she made for me and my uncles were excellent, but that again is another story. Man, you won't believe the crazy day I had. So, there's this nut job living next door. We all call her Karen. You know, the type with the "I'd like to speak to the manager" haircut. Anyway, my wife's pregnant and we're both stoked about it. We're expecting our first kid and I'm cloud 9, right? Well, Karen, she ain't having it. So, the other day, I'm coming home after grabbing some late-night cravings for the missus. We're talking pickles ice cream, the whole deal. Now, our apartment complex doesn't have assigned parking, but everyone kind of has their unspoken spot. You feel me? So, I park in my usual spot, which happens to be right next to Karen's precious ride. As I'm unlocking the door, Karen storms out of her place, fuming like a chimney. She gives me the death stare and says, "You can't park there. That's my spot." I try to keep it cool, telling her, "Chill, Karen. It's a free-for-all here. No one owns spots." But, oh boy, Karen wasn't having it. She flips her lid, starts screaming about how she needs that spot for her energy crystals or whatever. I'm thinking, lady, I just want to get inside, put my feet up, and enjoy my cold pizza. I head inside and my wife's chilling on the couch with her snacks. I tell her about the Karen encounter, and we share a laugh. Little did I know, that was just the beginning. The next morning, I'm getting ready for work when I notice my car from the window, or what's left of it. I mean, it's not a flaming inferno, but there's smoke and the smell hits me like a punch in the face. My heart's racing as I dash downstairs and there it is. My car's rear end looking like a charcoal briquette. I dial 911 and as I'm on the line, I see Karen smirking from her balcony. I lose it, shouting, "Did you do this? Are you out of your mind?" She just waves like it's no big deal, saying, "That's what you get for taking my spot, sweetie." Cops arrive, and Karen's still acting all innocent. I'm trying to explain the situation, pointing at her like, "This is the crazy lady who torched my ride." They question her, and she spins this wild tale about how I'm some parking spot thief and how my car probably caught fire because it's karma. I'm standing there, mouth wide open, like, is this real life? As they investigate, Karen's smirking like she just won the lottery. I'm thinking, lady, you're going to need more than crystals to get out of this one. Turns out, they find evidence that someone indeed set my car on fire. The fire department does their thing and it's a whole mess. I'm stressed, pissed, and just trying to wrap my head around the fact that my car got toasted over a parking spot. Insurance gets involved and Karen's denying everything. She's acting like she's the victim in all of this. I'm dealing with insurance claims, towing fees, the whole shebang. It's a headache. And you know what the kicker is? My wife's due any day now, and we're down to one car. I'm juggling work, hospital runs, and dealing with Karen's nonsense. It's like a bad sitcom. Except I'm the guy getting the short end of the stick. The worst part? Kern's still living next door, still shooting daggers every time I see her. I'm just counting down the days until we can move out of this nutty place. But hey, at least it makes for a killer story, right? Life in the suburbs where parking spots are battlegrounds and Karens run wild.